Yeah, we're on Nun Chet. Last time I think we finished with... What did we finish? With speech. With Shechina, we talked about that. That what's in the speech is the final level of the soul, and that the mazla, the flow
speech
from
is
above.
Action. So why is speech the final level of the soul?
Because the Shechina only comes down to speech. Normally, there is such a thing. There is such a thing that you can also have Shechina in the work of your hands, in what you do. But that's from the outside. It's not because you gave it. It's a little bit different. It's not Shechina. But that's because Hashem blesses what you did.
Okay.
It's not that the neshama comes. The neshama doesn't come out.
Not giving tzedakah.
So again, Hashem blesses the.
With your body.
All the mitzvos, you could say that they're all actions, but they're not called Shechina. Shechina is, again, Shechina is hislapshus. Mitzvos are makif. So it's two different things. So you normally, when you do something, it's not memala, it's more connected to sovev. And when you say something, that's memala.
Okay.
So? Okay. So what the sages meant when they said Ein Mazal Yisrael, so like about here. Ein Mazal Yisrael. At the end of the line. זהו בחינת השפעה שנמשך ממזלות שמסודר על פי טבע בסדר ההשתלשלות של מזל מחכים, מזל מעשיר. What they meant by mazal was that there are certain things that a person is innately born with, and that's called the mazal. And Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, they're above this, meaning that they're able to surpass the natural tendencies, the natural proclivities. But there is still a concept of mazlayu chazi, that the mazal sees. And there, when we mean, again, it's the same problem always in Hebrew and in Kabbalah and in Torah, that we don't have enough terms to differentiate between different aspects. So we use the same term for many things. That's how Hebrew is in general. So sometimes when it says mazlayu chazi, your mazal sees, hakavana mekora hanshama lemala. It means the source of the soul above. It's not talking about the natural proclivity. It's talking about the source of the soul. So mazal sometimes means a natural proclivity, and sometimes it means the source of the soul. B'chinat v'nuzlim min levanon. That, and the neshama, like water, flows from above to below. Ki hinei zet tshuva hei tata, because we know that tshuva means that the lower hey in Yud Kei Vav Kei, in Hashem's name, returns to its source. In other words, the malchus goes back up to its source, and the malchus is speech. Here we're talking about speech, for instance. And all of this is the toil of man. What man does is elevate, and this is what we saw last week, he elevates the malchus up in reflected light, in returning light. And he does this, when he overcomes his cravings, and he serves God, then he returns to, this is all what we call the alat nitzotzot, raising of the sparks, elevating of the sparks.
Doing tshuva, because doing tshuva.
Right, it's tshuva, because it's taking them out of exile, taking things out of where they fell to.
Tshuva and doing mitzvahs is the same thing, or it's different?
Tshuva is like the general. It's the tshuva is like a meta mitzvah. It's like it sets the tone for all of the mitzvahs. And it was created before the world was created. That's how the sages describe it. That the tshuva was created. Man was created from the place that he does tshuva. It's like his source. Meaning, in other words, that the whole point of man is to elevate the world, is to take things up. That's where he was created for. That was his purpose. By doing so, he elevates, he conquers, as it were, but takes up the last hay, the malchus, b'shem havaya, in the name havaya, in Yud Kei Vav Kei, desham shoresh nishmata melabesh beguf lemata, shi'eh yenikat hachitzonim v'sitracha. And when the malchus came down, that's what allowed for the various impure forces to have something to live off of. They live off the malchus. And when you take it away from them, they disappear. When you take away their source of sustenance, which is the malchus that came down, you elevate the malchus, so they're left with nothing to live off of, and that's how the impurity or the iniquity of the world is rectified. ואם מוחו וליבו מתבוננת בהשגת אלוקות, וזהו עסקו תמיד, ועל ידי זה תשוב ה' למעלה משם הוויה. And it's so much so, like we saw last week, that if this is your business, your whole life, you're able to take the malchus and lift it even higher than you, even higher than yourself. That's the real purpose. I mean, when you think about what we learned last week about the woman being the malchus, it's not good for man to be alone. So the purpose of every good man is that his wife should surpass him. I mean, she should rise higher even than he can be. And that in general is the whole story of mankind. Except that at some point mankind gave up the schus, say the merit, or the whatever you want to call it, of doing this task, and only the Jewish people were left with it and entrusted with it. But all of mankind was supposed to do this. Yeah.
So if women are doing the elevating and you're raising higher than their husbands,
right, that's called the Eshet Chayil Ateret Bala. She becomes his crown.
So then why don't they have more mitzvahs than men rather than
because they can't do the elevation themselves. It's almost like when it comes to the elevation, they're passive. Today, they don't want to be passive anymore. Some of them don't want to be passive. Say that. Good luck. See if it works. I don't know if it works. If it works, we're going to have to explain it. But on the face of it, it doesn't work. On the face of it, she needs someone else to make it happen. But in the end, she enjoys it, and actually, she becomes a source in herself. The same way that we say that even the Jewish people, in some sense, they elevate as a people higher than the name Havaya. That they pass the name Havaya, going up, לבחינת mazal, לבחינת ein, they become nothingness. And again, when you say it like this, a lot of times it sounds like this is crazy theology. But really it just means that there's a level of spirituality, there's a level of connection to Hashem that's called the crown, and it's just not conscious. So when you say, I'm going to pass Havaya, what you really mean is, I'm going to pass the conscious levels of godliness. But of course there are infinite levels of godliness, and most of them are not conscious. So we call them super conscious. It's really what it means is ein. Ein is the keter, is the crown. V'zeu shekatuv v'aruach tashuv. That's what it means, that the spirit returns to its source. V'zeu inyan kriyat shma limsor nafsho. And the same thing happens in kriyat shma. Da'aynu sheyeh lo tshuka v'rishvesh lashuv l'shorosh hanshama lemala. And really what it means there in Mesirus Nefesh, it doesn't really mean that you have to sacrifice your life. It means that you have to want so much to be beyond the conscious, call it conscious understanding of Hashem that you have, that you elevate beyond it, that you're willing to go beyond it, beyond what you understand, beyond what you can grasp. This is how Chabad always explains it. But we're not talking here about some emotive quality. We're not talking about some trance. It's an ability to take the mind higher than what it can grasp. ובזה יש כמה בחינות, דהיינו קריאת שמע בשחרית וערבית, and you say קריאת שמע twice, בשחריס, מאמרי, קריאת שמע שעל המיטה, and there's also קריאת שמע על המיטה, כי קריאת שמע, before you go to bed, בקריאת שמע שעל המיטה אומרים בידך הפקיד רוחי. There the elevation of the spirit really happens. That's why you say קריאת שמע before you go to bed. So that when it rises, when the spirit rises, it should rise to the right place. That's what the קריאת שמע before sleeping is. And the Arizal brings in his Kavanos, Shebiatcha Fkid Ruchi, those three words, they're Rashi Tevos, their initials are Be'er. What do you mean Be'er? It goes to the source. Like a Be'er is a wellspring. It's not a wellspring like a Ma'ayan, but it's a well. And here it means the well of the souls. It's where all the souls come from. So Be'atcha Fkid Ruchi is going back to this well. דהיינו העלאת בחינת נפחת בי המלובשת בגוף ושורשה האחרונה דשם הוויה וזהו תשוב תשובה לבחינת האחרונה. So that's about the קריאת שמע on the bed. קריאת שמע דשחרית ביום מאיר בחינה גבוה יותר. And if you do the קריאת שמע at night properly, then when you say קריאת שמע in the morning, you elevate to an even higher state. דהיינו בחינת Bet, I think it should be, Tashuv Heilim Korah, then Shema Lemala Mishem Avaya. So first it returns to the well of the souls, and then it goes in the morning even higher than that. Like we said, it goes even higher than Shem Hashem, B'chinat Ad Yavor Amcha Hashem. Okay, so this is just to explain more about the elevation. Really what's missing here, that the Tzemach Tzedek develops this a lot, is the whole understanding of what does it mean? What does it mean that things are elevated? It's really missing here. He's not explaining it. That's why it's a little. It might be that this is how the Alter Rebbe explained it at that time. But the Tzemach Tzedek, when he repeats the Maimer, this essay, he adds a lot more information about what elevation really means. But we're not going to do it because we're not going to finish. V'nei he'anan should be he'anan. Ubchinat koach hatshuva. The cloud represents this power of elevation. That's what it does. And we said that everything was created on Friday night between Friday and Shabbos has the quality of being able to connect the mundane with the supernal, the profane with the sacred. So what we call a cloud, how are clouds formed? Why is the cloud the symbol of this? Because they knew from way back when. And it says in Torah, "Ve'ed ya'aleh min ha'aretz v'yishka et kol pnei adama." What is this ed? So the Torah says, how are clouds formed? They're formed from mist. Not mist, the real word is evaporation of water that becomes, it's not humidity, it has a different name. Not mist. No. I don't remember what it is. It has a scientific name. And this rises up into the atmosphere and it becomes clouds. And that's where we get our rainfall from. So they all knew, this is very interesting, especially in Eretz Yisrael you see this. You don't see this so much in America or in England, I don't think you see it either. That there was a direct correlation, even though you see it to some extent. But London, for instance, I remember when I was in grade school, we saw a chart of precipitation in Tel Aviv and in London. And there's the same amount. They say it was average. Today it's not the average, but the average when I was in grade school was about 700 millimeters per year in Tel Aviv. I think that now it's around 500. But it used to be 700. And London was 750. So they thought it was a good comparison. The only difference being that in London, it's every single month of the year. And every single month is like 50 millimeters. A little bit more, 70 millimeters, something like that. It's pretty solid across the year. And in Tel Aviv, it's 7 months of nothing, and 5 months all 700 millimeters come down. So in Eretz Yisrael, it was very easy to come to this conclusion that the summer creates the rain. And it's true, that's exactly what happens. It's a little bit more complex, but were they off or not off? I mean, but they came to the right conclusion. They understood the pasuk the right way. In Eretz Yisrael, you mamish see it, that the evaporation from the ocean during the summer months creates the clouds. And you see it at the end of the summer, you mamish see it. You see it evaporating during the day. It's really hot, like now is like and in the morning, you get the clouds. As it cools down, you get clouds in the morning. So you mamish see it. So it's more complex than that because there's weather and there's a high barometer and low barometer. There's a lot of things that go into it. But in the end, that's the basic thing. That the water evaporates from the oceans and it becomes clouds. So clouds are a form of capturing the notion of something coming from below and going to above. Of an elevation. So that's exactly what a cloud is. So that he says that here. He says, the cloud represents the power of tshuva, because we just said that tshuva is elevation. It's taking something, the malchus, from below and returning it to its source. The cloud is formed by the heat of the sun shining strongly on the earth. And when it says the earth, it doesn't mean the earth. It doesn't. They didn't think that. The planet. They mean all the elements in earth. Okay? There's a lot of elements here. There's also water. Al yedei ze motzi edim min haaretz, or udim. There's actually a word. Udim is like fumes. It's the same thing. So it brings out the fumes, the mist, the water out of the earth. And again, the earth here is the oceans and everything else as well. ומעלה עננים למעלה על פני הרקיע כאשר נראה בטבע. Okay. This is what we see. This is what creates the clouds. And you can see this easily. כשמניחים כלי מלא בקירוב לאש, יוצא מן עשן המים. So if you heat a cup of, for them it was a big deal. For us it's like nothing. Of course we heat something up without any effort. But if you take water and you heat it up, so you see that it turns into gas. כי האוויר שמן הרקיע לארץ נתחלק על ג' אווירים. So it's very interesting. It's a correction. It says here שניים, that the atmosphere divides into two. Really, he wrote here originally three. There was a mistake in the... And this, I brought you the picture. So this is something, actually a movie not long ago made of the discovery. Where's the picture? Oh, here it is. The early atmospheric scientists, they used hot air balloons to get to these heights, to be able to see it, because it's very high. Okay. And they froze their tuchas off on the way up. And the reason they didn't die is because the higher you go, suddenly something amazing happens. It begins to heat up again. So the moment you pass 10 miles, which is called the tropopause, and you finish the troposphere, and you get into the stratosphere, then you stop freezing your tuchas off. Then you can survive. Now that took crazy people with nothing better to do with their lives to go past 10 miles, and it's minus 60 up there. I mean, it's pretty cold. I don't know how you could function at minus 60 in open air. And luckily I don't think there's much wind there, but it's not very comfortable. So to push further to get up past 10 miles, when they were already at negative 60, freezing, it took a lot. Imams had to be a daredevil. You had to be somebody who's willing to die. And they were. That's how they were, these people. For science, they were willing to have their name recognized. They were willing to do anything. So they went up in hot air balloons, and you can get with a hot air balloon up to 20 miles also. Yeah. Even the 1800s. That's what they did. But it took a lot of guts to do it, because what if it just keeps getting colder? They didn't know. But at some point they broke the troposphere and they got into the stratosphere. And suddenly when you get into the stratosphere, it's not as quickly, it doesn't heat up as quickly as when you went through the troposphere. It doesn't heat up as quickly as it cooled down. But it does begin to heat up.
From what?
Oh, it's a lot of it's from the ozone, basically, I think. I'm not very...
Oh, we got rid of oil, so that's
we don't have to worry about that anymore. Anyway. So it's amazing here that he says that there are 3 levels of atmosphere. And it works like this, he says. I don't know how he knows this.
Knew everything.
No, where did he know this from? What do you mean he knew everything? Where did he know this from? Listen what he says. האוויר העליון שסמוך לרקיע, תוקף החמימות, is תוקף החמימות. The air that is high up in the atmosphere, it's hot. Then, where were we? Avir HaMemutza, the middle part of the atmosphere, Sham Tokef HaKirut, it's where it's coolest. ובאוויר התחתון, שסמוך לארץ, מתפשטות חום השמש בתוקף. And then, in the lowest part, where we live, the further down you go, the hotter it is. And that's, Death Valley in America. And
up in a hot air balloon.
So the only way you could have known is that I don't know when this was written, and it was written after these crazy aeronauts did what they did, and they knew this already. But he doesn't bring a source from Torah.
You're worried about where the Alter Rebbe knew it from?
Yeah. If he knows it by nevuah, so tell me. I know it by nevuah. But he doesn't bring it here like it's some kind of nevuah. He knew it from somewhere.
Alter Rebbe was a big maybe on geography.
But there was no way to know this. If there was, it's an amazing extrapolation, because nobody had been up that high. So how do you extrapolate this with logic? It's very difficult. So he knows this from somewhere in Torah. Either he knows this from Torah, or he knows this from somebody had actually done the experiments earlier than I think that they did. But in any case, when you look at the chart, so you'll see here that this is the lowest part. That the lower you go, the hotter it becomes. Really, the highest part for him is what we call the stratosphere. The entire thing just reflects itself twice. So really, there's 6 parts altogether. It's because then you get into the mesosphere and then thermosphere. And the thermosphere is pretty amazing, because at 120 miles above the Earth, it is boiling hot.
Oh yeah.
Look at it. It's 70. It's like 80 degrees Celsius.
Is that when the planes and the spaceships start to melt?
No, that they do because of the friction. It's not that hot for a material. There we're talking about the frictions like in the thousands of degrees, or at least high, like 1,000. Here we're talking about just if you were outside. Like if you were just outside, it would be very warm. Now, what the reason is, I have no idea. I have no clue. In any case, so it just reflects itself twice, and it pretty much repeats itself. So the troposphere is like the mesosphere, and the stratosphere is like the thermosphere. But since it goes like a V, so really you have 3 parts to it. You have going up, you have the max here, and then you have the going down again. Going down and coming back up. So in either case, he's talking about either that you're looking at from the stratopods or you're looking from space. But in each case, as you're closer to space, it's high temperature. You go further down, the temperature goes down, like he said, in the middle, which is either the mesopause or the tropopause, where the temperature is lowest. And then when you come down, either to Earth or to the stratosphere, the temperature goes up again.
What level do planes fly?
10 miles usually. Hot air balloons go a lot higher than planes. That's one of the crazy things about this. That I don't think you could survive. At least I tell you that you can't survive in the unpressurized part of the plane, which is like if you were with the luggage, you wouldn't do too well. Because they say...
Right, he might fill in with it.
Right. No, you can't put batteries, for instance. They explode.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah. So they don't let you take batteries, lithium-ion, anymore on planes because they've exploded in the past. Luckily, I don't think any plane ever came down, but it's not very nice to see all the luggage having exploded. But I don't think you could survive there. And these people in the hot air balloons, they went way beyond this. I don't know how and they didn't have oxygen. I mean, they had more than 5 liters lung capacity, these guys. I don't know what they had. They didn't have corona either.
So I gotta go to...
Yeah, let's just finish a little piece here. So he has this amazing piece here about how the atmosphere is composed, and it's perfectly right. And he gives the reason like this. כי מאחר שאין לו מקום להתפשט, that's why it becomes hotter. Meaning, he attributes it to pressure. And he's probably right. I don't understand meteorology enough, but I assume that he's right. עוד, anymore. לכן הוא בתוקף גדול, כי נעוץ תחתון, I think it should be תחתון. Oh, sorry, זריקת, how does he says, so he does give a reason here. But this is like just an example. Really, you could look at this chart and you can mamish see it. That it's like a person throwing a ball at a wall. So he throws it and it comes back. Really, what he means is that the rays of the light hit. Okay. So just we'll finish this. כשמגיע לקודם אחר שאין לו עוד להיכן להתפשט, על ידי זה נעשה אור חוזר להתפשט. It's exactly what we saw last week, לחזרה בתוקף. על כל פנים, מחמת אור השמיים בתיקוף על הארץ, על ידי זה מעלה עננים, וזהו העניין לפשוטו. So that's how clouds are formed. Because we get the heat, intense heat below, it causes the water to evaporate, and then the fumes, the air carries the humidity up into a higher place. And what he means by that it gets colder is that's where it coagulates, or I don't remember what the exact word is. It's the opposite of evaporate. I don't remember what it is. I forget. In Hebrew it's called the tabut. I don't remember what. But I can't remember what it is in English. In any case, so that's why that's the simple understanding, the scientific understanding of clouds. But the clouds, in that sense, represent exactly what we mean when we say elevating the sparks. That something that was here below, it was stuck here below, and you freed it. And by freeing it, it went up. And when you freed it and it went up, when it rises up, it rises higher than you. And not only does it rise higher than you, it then feeds you.
It's in free movement.
And it rises higher than you, and it feeds you afterwards. It becomes your source of sustenance when it comes back down as rain. So tomorrow we're learning.
We could learn tomorrow in theory at 7:30, but it's too early for you.
No, it's fine. So we'll learn tomorrow so we can finish this. And then if we learn again on Thursday, then we'll have maybe even time to look at the Tzemach Tzedek.
You want me to call you tomorrow to remind you?
Yeah.